Have you ever been sitting next to a woman feeling like something is pulling the two of you together, like gravity, like electricity under the surface, and you couldn't quite name it? You didn't know if it was real or if you were imagining the whole thing, so you did nothing. You smiled politely, you kept the conversation safe, and you drove home that night staring at the ceiling, wondering what just happened. Most men have had that moment, multiple times, and most men carry it quietly, without ever understanding what they actually missed. Today, that changes. What I'm going to walk you through is not a list of tricks. It's not manipulation tactics dressed up in fancy language. What this actually is education in human behavior. Specifically, 5 of the most consistent, most overlooked signals that a woman puts out when she's been emotionally and physically disconnected for a long time. And when she's starting to open, slowly and carefully, to the idea that you might be different. These signals are not loud, they're not obvious, but once you understand them, once you truly see them, you cannot unsee them. And the way you respond to them will determine everything. So let's start at the beginning. There's a concept in psychology and neuroscience called touch deprivation. It's not a metaphor. It's not a dramatic term invented for self-help books. It is a measurable physiological state that occurs when human beings go without meaningful physical contact for extended periods of time. And when it sets in, the body doesn't just feel lonely. It starts communicating in ways the mind isn't always aware of. The first signal lives entirely in this space. When a woman has gone a long time without feeling genuinely close to someone, her relationship with physical touch changes. It becomes deliberate. Every small contact becomes meaningful, even if she doesn't consciously plan it that way. You'll notice her finding reasons to reach across and touch your sleeve when she's making a point. You'll notice that when something funny happens between you two, her hand lands on your arm and stays there just a little longer than friendship typically allows. You'll notice that when you're walking together, there's very little space between your shoulders. None of this is accidental. The human body, when starved of genuine connection, begins reaching for it in every small, socially acceptable way it can find. Here's where most men get this wrong. They notice the touch and immediately either overreact, turning it into something it doesn't need to be yet, or they dismiss it completely, deciding she's just a naturally affectionate person. Both responses miss the point. The right read is somewhere more grounded. Stay present, don't flinch. Just be comfortable in that moment, because your comfort is exactly what she's testing for. She wants to know whether you can receive warmth without becoming either desperate or oblivious. That calm, easy confidence in a small moment is more attractive than most men realize. The second signal moves from the physical into something deeper. A woman who has been disconnected for a long time, not just physically, but emotionally, starts to hunger for a particular kind of conversation. Not small talk, not surface level back and forth. She wants to know whether the person in front of her is capable of actually seeing her. So she starts asking the kinds of questions that feel casual on the surface but carry real weight underneath. She'll ask you things like whether you think people change, whether you believe someone can be strong and still vulnerable at the same time. She might share something that feels a little too honest for the stage of the relationship you're in, and then watch your face carefully to see what you do with it. This is not a trap. It's an audition. She's not trying to make things complicated. She's trying to figure out if you're emotionally literate enough to be trusted with the real version of who she is. Because the real version, the unguarded, unfiltered version, is what she actually wants to share. She just needs to know it's safe to do that. The men who fail this moment are the ones who get uncomfortable with depth, who deflect with humor at the wrong time, or who answer thoughtfully but then pivot immediately to something lighter, because they don't know how to sit in a meaningful conversation without feeling exposed themselves. The men who succeed are the ones who meet her honesty with their own, who say something real back, something that doesn't perform or lecture or try to solve anything, but simply reflects that they heard her. That kind of response, rare as it is, creates a connection that feels almost shockingly immediate to a woman who has been surrounded by surface-level interactions for too long. The third signal is almost entirely nonverbal, and once you know what to look for, you'll start seeing it everywhere. The human body has its own language. It runs parallel to everything we say out loud, and it's significantly harder to fake. When a woman is drawn to someone, genuinely and physically drawn to them, her body orients toward that person in ways she often doesn't consciously control. She faces you fully, even in a group setting. Her feet point in your direction. When you speak, she tilts her head slightly, a gesture that actually leaves her more physically open and exposed, which on an instinctive level signals trust. She finds reasons to reduce the physical distance between you, inch by inch, without it ever being a dramatic or obvious move. Her energy in the room is different when you're in it. And here's what's interesting about this signal specifically. The more deprived of real intimacy she has been, the more pronounced these signals become. Because her nervous system is not just passively responding to you. It's actively searching for signals that you might be safe, that you might be real, that you might be worth the risk of being open again. Your job in this moment is not to pounce. Your job is to match the energy slowly, calmly, the way two people fall into step with each other on a walk without either of them deciding to do it. That synchronization, that quiet rhythm is what builds genuine attraction, and it cannot be rushed without breaking entirely. The fourth signal is the one that trips up the largest number of men because it looks, on the surface, like resistance. When a woman has been hurt before, disappointed before, let down by someone she trusted before, she builds walls. Not to keep everyone out permanently, but to make sure that the person who eventually does get in has earned that access. And one of the primary ways she tests for that is by creating friction. She might say something challenging to see if you'll get defensive. She might share an opinion she suspects you'll disagree with, and then watch closely to see whether you can hold your ground without becoming combative, or fold completely just to please her. She might go quiet suddenly after a moment of warmth, pulling the warmth back to see whether you chase it anxiously or stay steady. This is not a game in the cynical sense. It's self-protection dressed up as behavior. The men who panic during this phase are the ones who start over-explaining themselves, who get wounded by the friction, who either go cold in return or become suddenly much more attentive and eager to make everything okay again. Both responses confirm her fear that you are not stable enough to be trusted. The men who pass through this phase are the ones who stay the same, who don't take the friction personally because they understand where it comes from, who give her space when she pulls back without disappearing entirely, and who return to warmth naturally when she returns to it. That consistency, that unshakable but gentle steadiness is the exact quality a woman craving real connection has been waiting to find. The fifth signal is the clearest one. It is also the one that most men explain away because they don't want to read too much into it, and that hesitation costs them everything. When a woman wants to move closer to someone but hasn't found the right moment or the right courage to simply say so, she creates the moment herself. But she does it in a way that gives both of you a way out if it doesn't go well. She invents a reason for the two of you to be alone together. It might be asking you to come over to help with something that doesn't actually require much help. It might be suggesting a movie at her place instead of a crowded theater. It might be finding a reason to extend the evening when the natural ending point has already come and gone. She is not being manipulative. She is being human. She wants the closeness. She's not fully sure how to ask for it directly, so she builds a bridge and walks out to the middle of it, hoping you'll meet her there. What she needs from you in that moment is not for you to be clever or smooth or impressive. What she needs is for you to be present, to show up the way you said you would. To be easy to talk to, easy to be around, to let the evening breathe without filling every pause with performance or pushing the energy somewhere before it's ready to go there. Because she didn't invite you over because she needed her furniture rearranged. She invited you over because something in her, something tired and hopeful and a little bit brave, decided that you were worth the risk of trying again. And the way you respond to that, not with hunger, not with strategy, but with simple, grounded, genuine presence, that is what separates every mediocre encounter from a real connection. Here's what all 5 of these signals have in common. They are not invitations for you to perform. They are not opportunities to deploy tactics. They are moments when a real person with real history and real needs is giving you access to something they don't give everyone. And what they're looking for, underneath all of it, is not a man who knows the right moves. It's a man who is actually there, fully, calmly, authentically there. That kind of man is rarer than most people admit. And when a woman finds him, especially after a long stretch of feeling invisible or misunderstood or just profoundly alone in her own experience, the recognition of that is immediate. It doesn't need to be manufactured. It doesn't need to be engineered. It just needs to be real. So take what you learned here and use it the only way it's worth using. Not to gain the upper hand, but to become the kind of person someone else can finally feel safe enough to reach for. Because that, more than any technique or tactic ever invented, is what genuine connection is actually built from.